Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Spiritual Talk. It's another Wednesday. Hi, Leanne.
Hello, Paul, and good evening, everyone. How are
Good to
you?
see you. Yeah, it's good to see you back. It's good to see you back. I've got, in case people are wondering, I think that's a bit of hair. I've got a little bit of where Leanne hit me after the show last week. Not true. Not true. Good to see people coming on. Hi, Sean. Hi, Carol. How are you guys? Love to see you. And we're definitely live. And this week we've got another great guest. Hi, Artie. Artie's on as well. I believe you might be a new person watching. If you're new, welcome to Spiritual Talk. We're live every Wednesday. It's good to see new faces and old, of course.
Welcome, everyone.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So, Leanne, should we just go straight into
we will
bring our guest in?
This week's beautiful soul does direct voice channeling, and she's a light language activator and a frequency alchemist, among other things. And I have had the pleasure of doing one of her live light language activations, and it was wow and blew me away. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Maia Francis. Welcome.
Good evening, Maia.
Oh, hello, and thank you so much, Leanne, for that very beautiful warm welcome. And thanks, Paul, for inviting me onto the show. Very exciting.
Well, we like to have so many. Well, we like to get different modalities on the show, and how do you describe what you do in essence? Is it light language? Is it codes? Is it so? Before I kind of say something, put my foot on it, I want to make sure I say the right thing.
All of these new things that are tumbling into reality now.
Yeah.
Some of them new, some of them not so new. And I want to say, I sound like a wanker when Leanne introduced me, and frequency alchemist and light language activation, whatever. It's really, really hard. Right vocabulary, because this is so new for us all. It's not. It really things are shifting, as everyone knows, with the ascension process and with all of the different energies that are coming in. It makes sense that things change for us, and I really struggled with what to sort of call myself for a long while, and I was guided about 12 months ago. It came through really strongly. I was an activator, and I really didn't want to be that, because that just sounded really I don't know. You just sounded like you were so sort of full of yourself to say you're an activator. But I think that there are people that have codes within their energetic structure that are designed to be a match for some, not everyone, but for some other people. Codes, and that coming together can create an activation that can spark someone to be able to speak light language, or maybe to bring some other online abilities into their awareness, or to be able to channel all those sorts of things. So that's sort of why the activator bit came into it. The reason I call myself a frequency alchemist is, even though a lot of people are just coming to this idea of light language, it's come through strongly from my guides that it's very limiting to talk about it as light language. What we're working with here is frequency. And frequency through sound, and that is what brings about information sharing, receiving downloads, the codes that can actually be really useful for healing or for bringing about alignment, that sort of stuff. So to answer your question more succinctly, Paul, it is about codes. What I work with is frequency. In the vernacular, we refer to it as light language, but in and of itself, that's not very descriptive anyway, because there are so many different types of light language. So it is a little bit reductive, and so the broader concept of this working with frequency through sound is probably the way it's best pitched for me anyway.
Sound is. Yeah, absolutely. Sound is very important in so many different areas in life, but also from simple music all the way through to a history. Sound has been used, and vibration has been used with singing bowls. So it's so important. It's interesting that you are becoming this vessel for the frequencies, your own voice. We interviewed someone recently that did the Om, and his voice was so powerful, guys. If you check him out, he's on our YouTube page, but And oh gosh, I should have written his name down. It's gone right out of my head. But bless him. It's a gentleman from Canada. I know some of you guys will remember. And his own vibration was so powerful. So I guess it's a mixture of that.
Yeah.
Before we kind of go down that route, though, can we talk about you as a person?
Sure.
Can we just where did it all start for you? Was it something, you're sitting in Sainsbury's shopping or something, and you started to feel connecting to this? Or Matthew Cassell, thank you, Carol. She's just saved me. Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
Awesome.
So let me think about this. You'd think I would have thought this through before now, but so a few years ago, I had a personally very traumatic experience. It was a relationship breakup, but it was a long-term relationship, and it was something that I thought that I knew how my life would unfold until the day I died, and I was really happy with that. So it was profoundly affecting for me, and the only reason I bring it up really is because I think so many people find the challenges come to them when they have these personal traumatic experiences, because all of the buffers, all of the barriers that we put around ourselves, all the busyness, or all of the patterns, all of the behaviors, they sort of fall away and it can be through a relationship breakup, or it can be through the death of someone, or it can just be through, or the loss of a job, or any number of things, as you know, and you would have interviewed lots of people who've had these experiences. And the reason I say this is because I was not in any way a spiritual person before that happened. And even, for probably a good few, I don't know when timing wise, but it wasn't like, well, that happened and bang, oh, I'm looking for something. I wasn't looking for something. I did not. I would have described myself as an atheist at this point. And we're talking 2017, so not that long ago. So I would have described myself as an atheist. I would have said my approach to life was just to live it as richly and as fully as I possibly could. And when I died, I died. That was it. But this really shattered me, this experience. And I was looking for ways to just soothe myself, to just get through the day without crying for, 23 of 24 hours. And so everyone hears about the benefits of meditation. And so I went into looking for some meditation sort of techniques. And I started meditating, and I did find that it started to soothe me. And so probably about maybe 6 months into, erratic meditation practice, I used to lie down. Well, I always lie down when I meditate, and my head started moving of its own accord. It felt like it was of its own accord. I did not move. I wasn't putting any focus or any intention in moving my head. And I don't just mean like, that little bit. And did I do that? I mean full on, poltergeist stuff. Like it could have swiveled if it had been able to, but it was ferocious. It was flicking from side to side. And so I didn't meditate. I stopped meditating then. I was really scared, and I didn't want to continue with it for a couple of months. And then after a little while, I did think I'd actually really enjoyed the meditating. And I thought to myself, I wonder what that, like, of course, what was that? How did that happen? And I did check in, and I wasn't in the spiritual community. I had no networks. I didn't have anyone to ask. And, if you Google something like that, you don't get very much back.
So for you, then, it's quite a conflicting what your belief system, and suddenly you've got all this going on. It's complete polarity to you. It's like day and night, isn't it? It's completely must have been such a difficult time for you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Paul. It was a real shock. And so it did take me some time to go back into it again. And then I think I decided that I felt that it wasn't a malevolent energy. That's all I could say. I knew it was an energy outside of me, or I felt it was. Actually, it wasn't. It was really me, but not this physical me. So I went back in, and then I felt more comfortable, and I continued with this. And then I I decided I would ask, I thought, well, maybe I could get some guidance because my life was all over the place and I could get a yes or a no. You know, I had heard people do that. And so, yeah, so that was sort of my next step.
Wow.
So many questions in my head. Guys, if you're thinking of questions, let us know.
I'm pausing a little bit, Paul, because I could just go on a monologue here. So I'm pausing to see what's the most appropriate question you'd like to put to me after that.
Personal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
How did that affect you, those around you? I guess because I mean I know people that are coming into light language, and I know how it's affects their personal. It affects constantly their own personal life. So for you, was that an easy transition? Was it something? Did you lose friends, family, of people on board with you? Because it's such a difficult thing.
Yeah. That's a really good question, actually. I think because I was going through this major personal shift anyway, I had lost a lot of my friends because they were shared friends, and with my partner, and then I was just going through my own stuff, which meant I started to get more discerning about the people that I would hang around with, and I am actually a very gregarious and very sociable and quite an extroverted person, but I just withdrew. So it gave me, the great thing about that was that it did give me that space and that capacity to be able to really process a whole lot of stuff and then allow the light language to sort of to come through. But before the light language came through, I would say, just in terms of sequencing, I began to channel. Now I channeled, probably to start with, I channeled myself, my higher self, and different aspects, and other sort of, I started, so that I could get my head around that, I sort of got. And then I was flying back from Australia, and I was in the aircraft, and I was feeling quite happy because I was able to meditate and take myself out for that 24 hours or whatever. But I had an energy that came through then, and because I had then started spelling through my head, this is actually how I began channeling. Was the reason I said about the yes and no was I could ask, you know, should I do this, and it would be yes or no, you know, that sort of thing. And then that turned into sentences. So I wasn't verbalizing, but I could say, you know, this is me, of course, now, but it would be something like, this is, you know, it would take ages. It would be my head moving for those words.
Okay.
So did you do this all on your own, or did you go to a group, like a circle, or had anyone help you?
I did do this on my own for probably until I actually, yes, I think when I was flying back from Australia, sorry, I'll just finish that little bit, which is that I had an energy come through. It was a collective, which is the collective that I work with largely now, mostly now. I work with other energies, but they're the ones that I predominantly work with. And they came through while I was on the flight and said, would you speak for us? And that's spelled through my head moving. So that was sort of why I referenced that. And so that's sort of another bit of the story. But after that happened, I was asking anyone that I knew vaguely who vaguely knew someone who was into woo-woo, because I just couldn't do it on my own. I just really wanted some support. But this was well into it, and I was referred to, I ended up doing a channeling session with a woman who is amazing. And if you can get her on the show, I would really recommend it. And her name is Janet Trelaw. She channels an entity, or he's an ascended master of Dua Kul, and he presents as one of his incarnated selves called Zachariah, and she is just absolutely phenomenal. So we did, you know, basic channeling one, and really that was really sort of how to tune into your intuition and that sort of stuff. And I guess the way it was expressing for me was sort of beyond that at that stage. But what was lovely about that was the support that I got, and the connection and the community, and that's really, really helped me really ever since. So yeah.
So in terms of the community support, I mean, that must have been really helpful. Once you found that, you was away, I guess.
Oh, it was lovely, Paul. I can't tell you, because I had none of that. I was just an ordinary person who went to an office to do a job 9 to 5. I just didn't have friends that I could talk to about this stuff. Like, I had one friend that I would say to, am I going mad? Am I going mad? And she would sort of like, no, you're fine, you're fine. I think she was thinking I was going mad, but yeah. So absolutely right. It was pivotal. It was really critical for me to let myself then continue in this unfolding and this expansion, which then led into us being able to channel light language. But before then, it was verbalizing for this collective cosmic consciousness.
Wow. So how long did you do that for before your actual light language came through? And
it's really hard, not making it up, but it's really hard for me to remember all the different timings. But I think it was probably, maybe it was 18 months, like the first 6 months, if you think I took 2 months out after, I just wouldn't do anything after I'd had that first experience. And then I had a phase where I had a lot of earthbound spirits who were wanting me to communicate for them, but I just didn't feel comfortable about that because I didn't want to go and knock on people's doors and say that their brother was okay. And so the arrangement was, if you could get them to come to me, I'll pass on messages. But then that morphed into me being used, I guess, as a channel for higher frequency energies that are outside of the spirit bound sort of realm. And so that probably took, that was probably 12 months after that. And then I think I was just, I don't even know how I started speaking light language, except to say I was watching, and I would recommend this for people who are interested, if they don't want to have individual sessions for activation, or they don't want to do group work for activation, just listen to a lot of light language speakers, because that's actually how I myself became activated. I found a few speakers on YouTube and I was utterly fascinated. I didn't know why. I couldn't understand it. It made no sense to me. I thought they were making it up. All of this is really fascinating now for me to now be on the other side of things. I'm sure they're just making that up. But I couldn't take my eyes off them. And energetically, I just felt different. I felt shifted. I felt changed. And so that's sort of how it began. And then, as you know, Leanne, as a channel yourself for light language, once it comes through, it's not like learning a language as such. It just flows then. So there's no extra sort of work that you have to do to swat up or anything. It comes through as it comes through.
Did you find it hard to trust? Because I know the very first time it happened to me, I know I started doing the trance, and for the trance part, it took me a while to like adjust and allow, because I'm like, oh, what am I letting in? I'm like, I'm always doing this in love.
Yeah.
But it was like a bit of a transition of the trust.
Yes. Absolutely. And I would say that is one reason why I recommend people who want to learn how to channel light language go through a group course or held by someone who is experienced, because so much of the blocks around being able to channel light language is that fear of, what am I bringing through here? You want to know for sure someone is holding that space energetically for you, so you're not, because you are opening yourself. You are becoming an open channel, whether you can verbalize or not. You are opening yourself up. And so I really do think that from a just from a energetic hygiene perspective, it's really important, and B, from a managing our human resistance perspective, it's really important, because that is a block that our humans just put up and say, I don't know that this is safe. I'm not going to let you go there. So I would agree with that entirely. But I would also say that for me, I've been, I would say, probably fortunate in that I have never had, and I know that I'm so deeply supported by guides and things, but as a lot of people are, I've never had a problem with negative entities or energies as such. There was just one time when it was an playful earthbound spirit who came through, and I think I was asking for some, feedback on different people, and I was asking for feedback on my ex-partner, and the energy spelt out, she is a bitch. And I'm like, oh. That was the only time I've ever had anything nasty come through. And it wasn't really nasty, as I say. It was just because I thought it was starting to spell out she is a BI. And I thought it was going to be like a bit, you know, unhappy or a bit difficult or a bit something. But it was, yeah.
Maybe they were just being funny.
Yeah.
And it was quite tame as well for an ex as well. So
yeah, true. Yeah. So yeah.
Awesome. So we've got a couple of questions coming in already. Carol Phillips has asked, I'm just going to quickly put it up. Do you think it would benefit everyone to put light language to music and release it publicly? Would it be able to ignite others and enlighten more people?
That's
Thanks,
such
Carol.
a great question, Carol. It's such an excellent question. I do actually. I think that the combination of, depending on the music, I mean, as Paul said in the beginning, everything is vibrational, and when you think about sound as being, you know, such a purity of vibration, and that we can work with different frequencies very deliberately and very intentionally when we create music. You know, that would be a brilliant underpinning for it. And then I think I just want to think this through. I think I'm working with some people at the moment who are musicians, and they're doing the light language course, and they're activated and they're speaking, and they want to do this. The reason I'm and I think that's absolutely fantastic, but as is always the case with energy work, I guess it is about the intention. And so for some people, it's about the intention, and it's also about the codes that come through. So for some people, accessing a piece of music that had an overlay of light language would be a really nice way for them to be exposed to it. But I do always think that there's so much about free will and intention when we're working with this energy that we have to. What I'm getting at here is that if you just broadcast something like that, I don't think it would be a bad thing, but if you just broadcast something like that and the person who was receiving it wasn't actually really looking for anything, they weren't really tuning into it, they weren't setting their own intentions, then I think it would be lovely. It would be lovely, but I don't think it would be activating in the same way that when you work deliberately and intentionally with energy, it often is. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. Absolutely. Shana's another great question here from Sean. Hi, Sean. I hear the word light language a lot, but I'm unsure on what it actually does. Could you explain this, please? Thanks, Sean.
Again, another really, really terrific question. So you might have missed just at the beginning of the session, we were talking about the words or the phrase light language, and it really is a catch-all for so much that's really it's really basically frequency work. And so I've been guided really strongly to start to shift the narrative around this towards really understanding what we're working with here is frequency. And when you talk about light language, it really bundles everything up, and there are so many different strands and streams and threads to light language, what we would put into that big basket and that big bucket, that it does get very confusing. I think we all have a verbal representation of the language of our soul, the soul signature, our own soul signature that we can express in a verbalized way that creates a point of communication, a point of greater belonging, understanding, connection with our soul, and that might reference some other galactic aspects of ourselves that we have. But that is a pure, for us, individual form of speech, of sharing frequency that is for us individually, specifically, personally. And then I think that there are people who speak a language or a dialect that they can relate back to, specifically back to galactic beginnings, galactic energies and presences. I think primarily that when that happens, it's actually them channeling an aspect of themselves, a galactic aspect of themselves. So this is getting into a whole different territory, but my belief is and certainly what I've channeled, and again, I did do a different course on this, but I do run a channeled course on accessing that intersection point between your soul thread and all of the different galactic aspects of you, and just finding the power in that. But the reason I raise it here is because I think there are people who, for instance, there's a woman called Wendy Kennedy who has for a long time channeled the Pleiadians, or she calls them the Ps. So she is channeling a broader collective than just herself, but there would definitely be an aspect of Wendy, her own Pleiadian aspect, that allows for that channeling to come through. So,
wow.
Sorry,
that's really interesting. I love the way you said that, and that is absolutely what it is. And a lot of people that start on this journey don't realize there is an aspect of ourselves within that.
Yeah.
So, and I love the fact that you mentioned that our soul is an interdimensional being or object or a part of us, however you want to describe that. Sorry, I'm waffling. Carry on.
No, not at all. That's great. I tend to ramble on, so it's good to break it up for your audience, I'm sure. But that's absolutely right. And I'm just picking up on that point about us being multidimensional souls, having, multidimensional experiences. It makes sense, doesn't it? So
it does, yeah.
So the way that I then sort of look at it, I think we've got our own soul language expression. We often will channel an aspect of ourselves. And then I think there are certainly people who channel light language that are of the sort of the earth, the more earth-based strands. And that might be people who channel Atlantean or Lemurian or maybe Native American. I sort of put them into a similar category because they are earth-based, but again, will just be aspects of themselves that or they've had that experience of as an incarnation on the earth. And then I think there are, and I don't consciously work with the elementals. It's just not. It just doesn't sort of come into my experience. But I would also say that there are Fey and elemental languages. When I say languages, very broadly, frequencies that people work with. So that's my understanding.
So can you pick up straight away, obviously, when you hear them, to know which elementals they're working with, which galactic group they're working with?
Yeah.
Or are
Sorry, can I interject on that question? Going back to when you said you early started getting information through, as a part of that question, for people that are just going into this, Maia, how do you recognize them? How do you differentiate between the voices? Is there something? Was there a process in that as well?
That's a really good question. So when I effectively go into a trance state to allow the energies to come through, primarily I'm channeling my own soul language, and that I understand that soul language is specific and important in a way that it has broader, more amplified impact on people. Now, I know that sounds completely egotistical and sort of really high, up there, but I just have to accept that is it's sort of in a sense my role, really. So my soul language does that. That's sort of what I'm here to do. But I can.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that can't be an ego thing, because you wouldn't do it in the first place if you was worried about your ego.
I didn't want to do this. Who wants to do this? Who wants to be that, like the person people point at potentially and say you're a Fruit Loop? No one.
Absolutely. You're putting yourself up to be knocked down.
Yeah, it's true.
So there's no way that this is an ego thing. Not on your belly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I do sometimes, I do have to keep myself in check around that and say, but actually, would you ever have chosen this?
Exactly.
will be working 9 to 5 in a really safe corporate job, you know, going on nice holidays once a year. You know, that would be the life I would have by choice, you know, as a human by choice, probably. So yes, that's right. The reason that my soul language comes through so strongly is when I work with people largely is that I can activate them through the channeling of that soul language. But I am, to answer your question, Paul, when I just take myself out and go into trance and allow that to come through, I will notice when I feel like I am channeling Pleiadian. So the Pleiadian frequency, that energy, is very high vibrational, very high vibe, and you can feel the shift in the energy. You just feel the shift in it. I also notice like the Arcturian is it's a more grounded energy. It's a more sort of healing, more cleansing sort of energy. So I can feel some of the galactics when they come through, the focus of them comes through. As I say, I don't tend to work with elementals, but I could pick it up if I was to hear someone else speak. And Leanne, I don't know whether you've identified your own sort of dialect at all, but when I listen to
it changes. It's never the same. And that's why I've found it really hard, because one minute it will, it's just what comes through. It would be different tones. And even my partner said there's been varied, so I can't really pin it down.
So I was going to say, I just listened to one of your transmissions, which sounded very Lemurian to me. It felt very.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, in that moment, you're connecting with another species, a race, an intergalactic being. You know, we're not talking about we're sitting here watching Coronation Street. This is something that's beyond our comprehension. How does that make you feel? Do you have to check yourself sometimes that you're having this? You know, you can't sort of say to someone over coffee, like you're on a dating site. What do? I'll talk to Pleiadians.
That's right.
It's all over, isn't it? It's all over from a date point of view.
Exactly. You're so right, Paul. So right. You've got to be very careful. Absolutely. And Leanne and I were chatting before the program started about the experience that we've both had of being woken up in the middle of the audibly, very loudly channeling light language, and that is what has woken us up. So we're asleep, and the sound of us channeling our light language codes is being what's woken us up. So for her partner, is sort of like has to deal with that, and at least for me, I think, well, I don't have a partner at the moment, and that's a jolly good thing. So, but so it is. It's a good question too around. I do have to check myself, you know, just coming back to the fact that literally 4 years ago, I had no understanding, awareness, knowledge, belief in all of this. And, you know, all I can say is I have to trust what I feel. You know, I really have to trust what I feel. I always feel the elevation that comes through when I channel light language. Sometimes I can't quite understand what the packets of information are, what the codes are, I generally have an understanding of what they're intended to do, but I always know they are elevating and really for our betterment. And I think it might be a good time to sort of have a quick discussion around why now? Why is this all happening now? Like why are so many people getting interested in this ability to sort of channel frequency, and why is that all coming online? And I think that it is just part of this broader evolution that we're going through. It's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? This energetic evolution that we're going through. So
the energies have really ramped up as well, haven't they? You can just feel it within the ground, the air, everything's just rising quite rapidly compared to what it has done in the past. I think more people are awakening a lot quicker, and their abilities are coming to the surface quicker, where some people would have spent years studying. Now it seems they don't need to study. It's kind of something happens and boom, it's there.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Can I just bring in Effie's brilliant question here? Thank you, Effie. When you begin light language and receiving the codes, does it stay with you permanently, or will we need to keep refreshing the frequencies?
Okay, so I'll answer this in two ways. When you begin to channel the frequencies in the form of light language, like I was saying, it's not a language that you forget and then you have to go back and swat up again. So in terms of bringing through the frequencies as your ability to be able to channel that will be with you as long as you can manage your human. So there might be times where you've been activated and within a group you're able to channel it, and you go out of that group and you're not surrounded by people or you are surrounded by people who don't channel, who aren't very spiritual, and the build up of resistance happens again. And so you might just find that you start saying, well, was it real? Was it really real? Did I really do it? Is it really a thing? Maybe I made it up. And so all of that can be a block to you, in which case I would say, just dip back in or manage some of that resistance. If you're asking about bringing through frequencies for a specific intention, like maybe a healing intention, and you've brought them through, you might be working with a client and you've brought those frequencies through, and that's felt really good for that client, and there's been a real shift. Mostly, if you've dealt with the root cause of the issue, then you shouldn't need to do it again. But sometimes again, it's a human thing. Sometimes we revert back to, limiting beliefs that we hold on to too strongly, and that vibrational, because what I think happens with light language or frequency work is that we basically can bring about a state of coherence in someone's energetic body. And in that state of coherence, then anything that is a dis-ease is sort of limited or reduced. But if you find yourself out of coherence again, well, then it might be necessary to do more frequency work.
That's a good question. Thank you, Effie. Another one from Sean.
Yeah. Do you have to be in a meditation for your light language to come through, or does it come through randomly?
So I think the lovely thing about light language or frequency is that as humans, we get to say when we use it and when we don't. Now, I mean, that's the caveat of Leanne and I both being woken up in the middle of the night speaking it. But if I had said the minute I was woken up, no, that's it for me, I am going back to sleep, absolutely my own free will decision would be on it. So that's sort of the primary thing, is that as humans we get to manage this. Whether or not you have to be in meditation really depends on how confident and comfortable you feel. If you've been, I'm sure there'll be a better way of describing this one day, but if you've been, for want of a better word, activated, so your ability to channel the codes has come online and you're aware of that, then you don't need to be in meditation as such. But I definitely think you need to ground yourself. You always need to ground yourself. You always need to not really protect as such, but just set some energetic space around you. Set your intentions. They're the three things that I do, is really ground, protect, and set my intentions. Now that happens within a nanosecond, but you do need to do that. You don't necessarily need to be in meditation, but if that ends up being your sort of in a sense your protocol that you take yourself through, then it's sort of an easy way of doing it, but it's not necessary.
Who have we just had?
There's a few on here, isn't there? Okay.
Yeah, just going through them.
So Effie, again, do you see them also, the galactic beings on our planet, Maia? Figures, forms, wisps of them?
That's another great question. Gosh, you've got a fabulous audience, haven't you? It's really fantastic, curious questions. So everyone everyone interprets energy very differently. So that's the first thing for us to really understand and accept, that you might hear someone else talking about the detailed visuals of their own experience, or seeing an energy or an entity in a particular way, and feel that, oh, that's a bit disappointing because I really only ever get, energetic currents, flurries, through my system, and I really want to be able to visualize more. We all have different strengths, and we all have different, we're just more aligned with different ways of interpreting energy. For me, I verbalize, and I am kinesthetically more attuned, I guess I would say. And I have on occasion, but it's not a dominant thing for me, to see things. So the seeing things, I often see I see the energy form, but not in any detail. And I have on a couple of occasions seen and have validated that what I've seen were Pleiadian aircraft. But as on an everyday basis, I think it would freak me out too much to actually be open to visualizing. We've got to remember too that we only get what we are ready to handle.
Yeah.
And so I thought I was ready to handle visuals, and I have been asking for ages, could I just see one of you, one of me, if that's it. And then we came to a day when it was just like, yes, are you ready? And I just went, no, I'm not. I actually think, it's safe for me to be able to open my mouth and have this come through. That's safe for me. It wouldn't be safe, wouldn't feel safe for some other people. It feels safe for me. Visuals, like out in the distance, an aircraft, a spacecraft, fine. But up close and personal, the expression of me as another galactic aspect, apparently I'm not quite ready for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Effie's put, be careful what you wish for.
Indeed. Can't turn it off. That's the thing.
No, absolutely. A great question from Carol. Can you recognize a fellow light language user without telling them or knowing they do it? Do they have a specific aura? Great question. She's also asked another question, which I'll come back into about the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's another one there.
Okay, so again, Carol, I would say this is very much in sync with the last answer, which is, for me, I'm not that au fait with, not just au fait, but I don't tune into energy from an auric perspective. I'm aware of that, and I get lots of information about that, but I don't tune into that. That's not what I visually see. So I wouldn't be able to sort of identify someone who could speak or couldn't, or even if they were just speaking, because this is the thing, when we're speaking, it's a very different thing to when you hear someone channeling light language, and you resonate with it. Now, we won't all resonate with everyone. And that, if you don't resonate with someone who channels light language, doesn't mean then they're making it up or not doing it right. It just means your energetic makeup isn't aligned with their energetic makeup, or you don't need the codes that they're sharing. So I would say that if you're just listening to someone speak as such, they are not channeling, they are not bringing through energy, so it's very difficult to tell.
I
think when you gel, you feel you get like a vibration, don't you? Or you feel really happy, and it's just like a burst of excitement, isn't there? But when you listen to somebody and it's not doing anything, you don't, like you say, it just sounds mumbo jumbo. But when when it's activating something with you, I mean, you can almost, sometimes I've had it where you literally get a vibration and it goes from your toes all the way up.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think that's probably a really good point to say. I always share in my groups that, if someone doesn't resonate with you, be discerning, because again, we're opening up our channel to receive. And if it just doesn't feel right to you, doesn't mean again that they're evil or dark or whatever. But if it doesn't feel right, then close yourself down and just don't think, oh, I'll stick with it for another couple of minutes because maybe it'll change. If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. And that's, that's on you to make sure that you're being really sort of cautious around that.
Yeah, we're all on different pathways, aren't we? So one minute you could listen to somebody and it doesn't feel right. You could go back 6 months later and they completely resonate with you because your energy changed and on par with them.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, Carol, just coming back to the early question you asked, do you ever get channel messages for the ears of politicians or world leaders about what they're doing? But I can I add a little bit into that. I mean, I guess this is what the codes is for, though, to activate everybody. So eventually, it would by default, the masses will change our reality anyway. So, well, have I just answered that question? I'm not sure, but that's kind of where I'm thinking. Light languages. Am I wrong in that, or is that what the purpose is?
No, you're absolutely right. That ultimately where we're heading is for everyone to shift in frequency. Everyone. So if you think of a politician working from a higher frequency, then they're automatically going to be making decisions that are better for everyone. They're automatically not going to be as polarizing, or the left and the right and the the blues and the reds or whatever. They're automatically going to be really working from their heart space, working in a much more compassionate and kind and loving sort of way. So that's ultimately where we're all heading. I don't get, so when I bring through light language, as Paul says, it's bringing through codes to really help shift the energy of either an individual, a group, or the collective humanity. I don't get messages as such like I wouldn't randomly get a message now for someone and then have to run and find them and give it to them. I will also say that my guides are really, and I think this is where so many guides are steering us at the moment. They're really big on self-empowerment. So they very rarely give me directive messages. It's always about, we have the power, and to Paul's point, we have the power to be able to shift our experience of being on Earth by the way that we manage our frequency. And they'll give us solutions and tips and tricks and whatever in terms of being able to do that. And that's, of course, what light language is part of that toolkit to help with. But they won't be prescriptive.
Awesome. So there's another one here from Sean.
This one? Oh, yeah.
Can you see that one? When you have light language come through, do you know what the codes are in English? Can you translate the light language to English, or does it work like that?
Yeah, again, a really good question, and one that is often asked. So in the beginning, when I was first channeling light language, I would do a little transmission, and then I would stop and I would try and sort of break it down for people and say, you might be feeling that in your solar plexus, if there's, we're working with anxiety here, so you'll find it'll start to soothe a little bit, might feel a little bit strong or whatever. And then I was really strongly guided to stop doing that for two reasons. One reason is that what happens with frequency work is that it actually works at a deep level, a deep cellular level. So it bypasses, this is the point of it, it bypasses our human brain. So when you stop transmission and you start to decode it, what you're doing is you're asking the person just to let their brain sort of step back and just go soft for a bit. And then all of a sudden you're saying, oh, okay, this is what it is. And doing that, you're bringing their awareness, their cognitive awareness and activity sort of more to the fore, and that really dilutes the impact of it. And the second bit of it is that quite often, and this is the magic and mystery of frequency work, quite often you can bring through a transmission that will have different effects on different people. The reason it has different effects on different people is because they need different things. So you're delivering packets of codes, but they are very specific to individuals for what they need at that time. So yeah,
brilliant. And we're hoping we're going to get a little flavor of it tonight, aren't we?
Sure. Yes.
So I'm quite excited about that. So yeah, sorry. Have you got a question? Did I stop you there, Leanne?
No, it's gone again. It's okay. I'm just.
I do that as well. Okay,
I was earlier on. I was like full of them. Tad bit excited about you being on here. It's so lovely when you hear other people doing it, isn't it? It's like mind blowing.
Very validating. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I just imagine it's like when you go to another country and they're all
Yes.
speaking another language, isn't it? And then you might go to a bar and you might overhear someone speaking the same as you are, so you like gravitate towards them, and it's exactly the same feeling. It's like, yay.
That's right.
So coming back to what we were talking about earlier. Oh, what's that? There's another one there.
Can you send a message back in light language to the higher beings?
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
Carol's got such great questions, hasn't she? So the thing is, we receive the information in codes because that's what we need. For us to be able to communicate back, I guess you'd say, to higher frequency beings, they don't need our codes. They, pretty much they work telepathically. We're all, it's such a tricky thing for us humans to really get. In particular, my collective guides that I work with a lot, they talk a lot about time not existing at all, and not just from the perspective of we've made up 24 hours or we've made up a year or whatever, but actually time in itself not really being in existence. These things are so hard for our human brains to sort of really integrate, I think, and a lot of that sort of still sits very oddly with me, but in terms of communicating back to higher frequency beings, this is all really happening within the quantum field. So by your own intention alone, you can communicate telepathically, you can communicate back with them. So my experience of channeling light language has been that it has been one way. They are providing, or myself or the energies that I work with are providing the codes, or my soul, whatever, are providing those codes. And it's not I think what it does do, and Leanne, I'd be interested in your opinion, your experience here, is I feel like when I'm doing maybe a transmission just from myself, it does open up, makes stronger the communication with my soul. So I feel like I've got a greater understanding, greater connection, a greater knowing, and that can certainly feel like that's a two-way communication. But I certainly, from if I was channeling a Pleiadian collective, I wouldn't light language speak back to them. They would just intuit it from a telepathic perspective. What do your experience?
Yeah, totally agree, because I'd always done it for clients that I was saying to you before, and I'd always been really quiet with it so that they weren't aware of what I was doing, because I didn't want to frighten people. Because when I did do it loud, somebody thought it was the devil I was bringing through, and that throws you a bit, because you're like, no, I do everything in love. And then I started getting louder, and then I've noticed that I do a lot when I'm driving, so it's for me, and my body just, it floats. And it feels like when you're walking, you're gliding, but it's given me a lot more confidence in what I do, and a lot more faith in myself. So it's brilliant, everybody going, oh my God, what you did was amazing, and I feel a lot better. And that is lovely, and I'm always very humbled by it. But sometimes I'm still in awe. Although it's been like years, I'm still in awe when I do something. So when the light language came back to me, it's almost like it's put me at a greater and deeper understanding of who I am, where I've come from, and not just on an earthly bound. Because like you were saying about beings and stuff, I actually asked, when I fell asleep one night, I'd been approached for somebody who wanted to do me a soul reading, as in where my soul's been on all its journeys. And I had that done. And then I asked, and when I went to sleep, if I could be shown where my soul's originated from. And I was taken to these planets where one minute I had got this, I almost looked like a cat. I had this huge, great big mane. Then I was taken to another planet where I was all watery and see-through and like metallic-y. So I went on all these different journeys into planets that I never even knew anything about. And then when my soul journey path came back, they were on it. And the lady she apologized at the bottom. She said, your souls come from planets I don't even know anything about, so I can't even tell you. She said, all I know is you're old.
Wow.
But that was like, So then I started doing my research. I'm thinking, oh, I've never heard of that. What is a cat on two legs? What does it look like? And that was like quite mind blowing for me. And I think now I've kind of, because of the light language, it resonates better with me, and I'm not afraid of it anymore. Where I used to think, where's the man going to come and put the white jacket around me and take me up and put me in a padded cell?
Dylan said he could arrange it. He didn't say that at all. He didn't say that at all. Sorry, Dylan, if you're listening. So the only thing I can liken that to is similar experiences I've had in trance circles, where I've come back and I felt at that moment when I'm coming back, I felt connected to all things. It's a very interesting experience. And it's interesting you said about your soul as well, connecting to your soul. There's so many questions and things we could talk about in this moment. There is other questions still firing in. So Effie's put, I believe that Maia, there is no time on the other side. It's only our finite minds here that time exists, and we're not bound by time on the other side.
No.
So I would then ask the question, but surely if you've got a civilization that is, and I was sitting here trying to work this out a minute ago, because I read Effie's question a minute ago, and I was listening, by the way, guys. I was listening, but if they're not bound by, they must have some kind of structure that they're bound by. I mean, I find that really interesting. And then there's the other aspect, of course. Can we connect with these within ourselves anyway? Is this outer world within us? Does that make sense? Through the astral, going into the astral plane and connecting as well. So yeah,
I think infinity comes from everything, though, isn't it? There's no boundaries, there's no limitations. It's only like your earthly thing. It's where people don't remember. Yeah. And when you start remembering, you realize that there is no limits. We put ourselves in our boxes. We do it because when you allow yourself to flow, there's nothing you can't achieve. There's nothing you can't do.
Limitation, though, that's a whole big thing. Limitation, isn't it? That's There's another great question here from Carol. Would that be like a long time ago? It was said people were talking in tongues. Is there is that light language, or was it something slightly different?
I don't know what you think, Leanne, but I have received that it was the same. It's just a different context, I guess. We didn't certainly generations ago, they wouldn't have been talking about the Arcturians or the Andromedans. Or
no, there'd have been
I know that largely talking in tongues. And this is where there is a little controversy. Some people believe talking in tongues is actually channeling the Holy Spirit, and other people believe that it's actually it is a form of frequency or light language. I think it can be both. As in it probably is for some people. Perhaps they do channel the Holy Spirit, and that's the frequency that they bring through in that verbalizing way. Maybe in church settings people just assume that that's what it is, and maybe it is other aspects of themselves or whatever that are coming through.
I think it's what people can resonate with and what feels most comfortable. We were saying this the other day about your like your spiritual side and that, whether you class God or the God within you as in unconditional love. So I think it's the same principle. What resonates with you, where light language might freak somebody out because it's out of this world, where when they say tongue in cheek, it's more accessible for them.
Absolutely, totally agree.
I
What's
was
this
just
one?
also Zoe's saying here.
Sorry.
That's right. Zoe's saying here. First time hearing about light language in this depth. It's really incredible. It really is, and it's certainly worth, guys going out there having a look around. I was just trying to bring up your website, Maia. I will do. I'll share the screen in a minute just so people can see. But yeah, I mean, there's also another comment here. Sorry, Leanne, from Crystal as well. Yes, I went to a clairvoyant who said she had never communicated the type of content she was communicating to me. I speak light language too. So even the medium that was giving the reading suddenly went into light language. What would you say to someone that suddenly starts doing this? What's the best thing in all your experience and what happened to you, what's the one thing you would say? I guess to both of you, really, this question is how, what if you could help someone in one simple sentence, what would you say to help that person?
Well, I think I would say don't be afraid of it. If it just comes sort of spontaneously, and obviously it won't happen unless you're ready for it. So you might feel a little nervous about it when it's happened and think, oh, I wasn't quite ready for that. But nothing beyond that will happen if you're not open, willing, accepting of that. If it doesn't happen, so if it happens because you've actively sought it out, you're not going to be nervous and you're probably just going to be delighted. If it happens because you've been activated, because you've just been playing around and someone happens to have activated you, I would just say don't be fearful of it. Feel into it. That would be my suggestion for everyone. Just feel it. Feel where the energy is moving in you. Does it feel good? Does it feel positive? Does it feel high frequency? Does it feel like love? And no matter how nervous you get about it, then always reference back to how it feels. And if it feels like all of those things, then it's not going to be a bad thing for you. So don't be fearful.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I'd agree. And then when it feels good, just let it flow.
Exactly.
Yeah. By the way, make sure, guys, when you search for Maia's, I'm just looking for our banners here we can put up. Make sure you put in the right one, because I just did that and I got up a chain of restaurants around the world. Make sure you copy and paste this and put it into your browser and it will come up.
I've never done that, Paul, so I've never discovered that I also
yeah, I spelt it wrong. I sadly say the A dropped off, so that was my fault, but I will try and bring it up. Should we literally got the last half an hour. We're going into that period, so can we do some sort of work or demonstration, or is it okay to ask you questions? I mean, and guys, if you want to get involved at home, just keep going with the questions, and then we can ask Maia as we're working.
Yep. Yes. What I'm going to do is I'll just go into my space and I will connect in with my guides and see if there's anything specific that would be really useful for people in general to receive. Quite often they'll bring through a theme or something like that that will be really helpful for everyone, and we can do a bit of a transmission that way. And then I'll just come in and out of it so that you can ask some questions, Leanne and Paul and anyone is connecting in, so it won't take a minute.
Effie has just said, let's do lunch. Well, of course, I think in Canada it is lunchtime, Effie, isn't it?
Okay, so it feels like I'm just going to bring through a harmonizing piece, like an attunement. And this will just do what I was saying before about creating coherence really within our energy forms, just to start us off, and then we'll see where it goes. Shikatapari, Akachitu under Katatia, Branda Katapapa Tikitia joy, Akachitu under Katatitia jar, lay low in the Katata, Akatitia, Tia. A secretary boy, chicken the Katatakia, Jup Makatata, Akachitu Babatia, Tia Lulele under Katatiki, Baba Chakanda Kotatitia, Akachi, Tia, Yip Makatitia, Ashesu, Bebe Tia, Akachuta as a chia, Dote under Katatikia, Wakichitu, Bebe Chikanda Kotatoy, Hush Kitty. Inkichi baba chakanda kotitikia, Georgia, boba chakanda kotatikia, Akachu baba patia, Ishu pepe chicken dicketia, Hasushi baba chicken dicketu tia, here, Gidia under katatia, Ikachinzitia, Baba papichikia, Ikachunzikia, Baba chaka, Akachunda katakia, Jiba papichikia. Greetings, greetings, greetings. We did not think she would be quiet for us to come through. It is a surprise, is it not, that we have popped in? And
Absolutely. Thank you.
you.
Thank you for coming.
Well, there is no party without punch. And we are the punch.
Great.
Dear Paul, greetings, dear
Greetings. Greetings. And thank you for coming.
It is our pleasure.
Do you have a message you would like to share with us this evening, please?
Well, indeed we do. We would not have decided to pop in if we did not have a message. You are not familiar with our cheekiness. Surprises.
We love it. That's great. Laughter is fun.
Our message for you, for all of you now, our message is that you are at the precipice. Sounds ominous, does it not? You are at the precipice, but it is a positive precipice to be at. What we mean is there has been such a groundswell of energy, as you have all been very aware of and are all very familiar with. Things have changed and shifted for you, have they not? You have needed to employ a variety of skills and techniques to maintain your stability, maintain your vibrational stability. In particular, well, it does not need us to remind you that this has happened over these past 2 years. But is it not interesting that you could contrast this experience of that which humanity is going through, that which humanity has gone through in these past 2 years? Dear Maia is getting a little annoyed with us because we are, well, we're not revealing anything too personal, but we would like to reference her experience. Is it not interesting that in these past 2 years, for humanity, you have undergone what is akin to what many of you go through on your spiritual journey? It is akin to personal trauma. So you have gone through personal trauma collectively. You have broken yourselves apart collectively. You have splintered off into little fragments. You have dissolved all that you knew before. And is it not interesting that you as a group this evening were discussing how quite often spiritual journeys begin, ascension journeys begin, awakening journeys begin with the breaking apart of that which was established and in place and known and understood and comfortable, but that which was an illusion nonetheless. And so when we say to you, you are at the precipice, what we mean is that you have gone through this trauma, this breaking apart, this allowing the density to bubble up, and allowing that density to alchemize, to shift, to move. And so this precipice that you are at is one in which there may feel for you that there is an enormous amount of conflict still. It may feel for you that there is an enormous amount of disharmony. Where is this going to? How is it possible that we will be entering this age of Aquarius, of this new earth? How is it at all possible? Because we look around and we see this disharmony, we see this conflict. When will it shift? How could it possibly shift? And we say to you, be aware, be confident in knowing that you are on the precipice. Be confident in knowing these things are where they need to be. You are where you need to be. And so we come through at this time to share with you these messages of optimism, supreme optimism, of positivity, of the great burgeoning of growth and renewal for humanity. And that is why we share with you such a celebratory transmission.
Thank you so much.
And so we will ask her now to close down this connection, merely because these messages that we share with you are so important. We do not wish them to be diluted by equally for you important personal queries and questions and requests. But for the collective, it is best that you retain this message that we share with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. That was beautiful. Very heartfelt. I felt like that for a long time, that this was, I could see the beauty in the last 2 years, even through all the pain, the beauty, and to have that message come through was, yeah, very heart touching.
There is something that Sean said I find really interesting, actually. Listening to Maia's message, I can feel a deepening sensation in my solar plexus I've never experienced before. And the reason why I find it really interesting, because I was sitting having the same feeling. Any idea what that could be, Maia? Is that just connecting? I say just. I don't want to make it sound like it's just. It's
no. So I would say that probably for both of you, there is still some dense emotion that they are bringing up. They are bringing up more. So I don't know. I suspect it's to do with. Let me just check. Well, let's look at Chan. For Shan, it's more like a reticence to step into her power. So it's really a holding back. And so, obviously solar plexus, emotions, layering of all of that sort of humanness that we hold energetically, really there's a tightness there for her. And so whether or not it's something like she's holding back from fully stepping into, maybe it's spiritual work, or maybe it's just taking that next step, and she's unsure of it, and she's really just holding it tightly. But when these high frequencies come through, which the guides have brought through now, they will disturb. So if there is anything that's residual, that's unresolved, that will come up, which is great, because then you can just set your intention to allow that. So those codes have really unsettled that. And you don't have to do anything. This is the great thing about this frequency work, is you do not need to go into therapy. You do not need to do months and months and months of processing this, of shifting it. All you need to do is set your intention to allow those codes to shift out of your energy field, anything that's not helpful for you now, and to take you into the greatest representation of yourself.
Yeah, Carol said she feels a bit nauseous as well. So it's quite normal reaction, and it's again, it's a vibration that's affected our core.
Yeah.
Sorry, I welled up while you were doing that. It just I whether it was because it resonated so much, but
yeah. So this is the thing about how different we can all receive the same transmission. And this is, again, the absolute beauty of it, because the frequency is so finely tuned to what you need in the moment, and that can be so different for everyone. So the welling up, I often find that people feel very emotional in a way that's not like it's not a sadness, it's not a depression, but it's actually quite often when I do a monthly transmission that's open for everyone on Zoom for people to connect into, and quite often at the end of that, when they're sharing their love for us, I am teary, which is really just my human physical reaction to their love, the profound nature of the love for us. So yeah,
it's overwhelming, isn't it? It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's put really lovely. Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah,
it really is. So for those of you sitting at home, guys, so May, you do courses and people connect to you, don't you? Can you talk us through what that would look? Say I've just come along and say, hey, how do I sign up to this?
Yeah.
But is that for someone like me sitting at home that's never done light language?
Yeah.
Does it help? And it's not just about my spiritual journey, is it? It's about so many different things, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. So it's not, they are so interconnected and so interrelated. So I think if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, well, this is fascinating, I'm quite interested in this, I would just sit on it for like 48 hours. If that fascination shifts on, moves on to something else, and it doesn't come back into your awareness, then now's just not the right time for you. But if you can't stop thinking about it, if it's something that you feel really compelled to investigate further, then it doesn't matter whether you've had any other practice or experience, whether you've literally woken up and thought, oh, I'm going to meditate today and this is the next thing that you do, or whether you've been, as I was, an atheist for such a long time, and then you just think, oh, I want to do this light language, I just want to do it. It really doesn't matter, because it's not a linear thing. You know, that's the thing. It's not a linear thing. So if you have an interest and an intention, that is all that's needed. I have, and again, I'm not saying this from a vanity perspective, but I have had a 100% success rate at activating light language channeling within all of my students. So there's not been one student that I've had that hasn't been able to channel their own frequency. And so, but what it does depend on is your level of interest, of intention, and of desire, really. But if you've got that, then we can manage as the groups are very small. They're, my maximum is 10 people in one group. I tend to work at about 8 or 9 people in a group. And the reason I like to do group work is because it's important for you to see other people putting themselves out there, being vulnerable, opening their mouths, not sure whether things are going to come out, not sure whether they're making it up or whether they're doing it properly. It is important for our humans to see this, so we break down all of that conditioning. And it's really important for us to have a really safe space that is a good bound basis in order to launch from.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, Elaine Thorpe has just said hello. Hello, Elaine. Hope you're well. Lovely, guys. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. You'll get a chance to go back and do this on catch up on our. We're on YouTube now and Twitter. So, guys, it's a really interesting interview. I've really loved this today. It's been fantastic. So, can I ask another question before we go? We're almost out of time already. It's gone so quick. Mm-hmm. What next, though, Maia? What's next? Are we just preparing ourselves for what's coming? I know when we had Elaine on the show, Jonathan talked about what was coming. What's happening to us all. How is that? Where do you see yourself, and where do you think this is going for you?
That's such a great question, Paul, and one I haven't really given much thought to. I think that I've really been asked to allow things to come through and allow the next stage to open up for me, and to really stop trying to plan and to, you know, which is what we tend to want to do as humans. So for me personally, I haven't sort of, you know, I do sort of a block of about 6 weeks at a time. But having said that, there are a couple of things that popped into my mind when you asked the question. And I think where we're going as a collective is working more collaboratively, like way more collaboratively and way more deeply collaboratively. So, you know, I think there are I love the positive message that the guides brought through about, and the optimism that was brought through. But I also know that there is potentially a sort of a messy period of this within the next sort of 4 to 6 months, and that is the time where these sorts of connections really need to be made, where we're not solo, we're not, no longer are we little lone wolves that are, you know, doing our thing. We're doing a bit of Reiki, or we're doing a bit of therapy work with crystals, or no longer can we be doing those individually. I think there really is, you know, the new earth as such, or this shift to 5D, it's about connecting up. It's about you know, unity consciousness on the ground, you know. So I would say that feels like where we're heading as a collective. I think for me, individually or personally, there's a real calling there for me to help facilitate that. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with Matthias de Stefano's work. He does a lot of work around sort of Atlantean times and sort of an awareness of that. He's facilitating something in Cairo at the pyramids on the 22nd of the 2nd of 2022 that I'll be joining in on, and that is really a massive activation for humanity, for bringing through a whole shift of energy. So I don't really know much more beyond that, which is often the case, but I feel like that's going to be the signal of a beginning of another phase for us all.
Which is absolutely awesome. Everybody's starting to wake up. So yeah, I was going to ask you next, what can we do personally, but you've kind of answered that anyway, really. Yeah. And do you want to finish? Is there anything you'd like to finish on? Because I've still got lots of questions, but we do need to wrap this up.
No, I just kind of really resonated with you tonight. A heartfelt thank you for your time and energy, and bringing through your beautiful guides that you work with. Just feeling blessed.
Very, very welcome, Leanne and Paul. It's been such a pleasure, and it's really lovely that you're providing this. It's not just a platform for people, but it's actually a point of connection. You know, it really is an opening up and an awareness and all of that. And everyone that you bring through, you know, I think that we've all got something to, you know, just even if something sparks something in someone else out there, it's a really lovely thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally
agree. Want, isn't it? You just want that little spark to ignite everybody else's own individual journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. There is actually, before we do go, there is actually, you've done one as well, Leanne, haven't you? You've done a recent, was it with Alicia?
Yeah, so I did a healing session, and while I was doing a healing, the light language came in, and then this beautiful soul started communicating with me. So then we hooked up and did a half-hour of light language chat, and we both set our intentions. So it was for humanity, and it was really lovely.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
It was.
Lovely.
So we'll put that, I think, is it in the spiritual talk group?
Yeah.
We posted that up. So guys,
I'm a bit nervous putting it out there because you don't know how it's going to go. And I was like, well, done it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, please go along to Maia's page. When do you next go live? Maia, are you going live soon?
Yes. So
this evening as well, didn't you? I caught that one.
What was that?
You did one this evening.
Yes. So that's true. Actually, there's a transmission on my YouTube page for someone asked me if I would do one for guilt, to clear feelings of guilt. So it's probably worth just pointing out that on my own YouTube page, I've got a whole heap of different transmissions for different reasons, different themes. So there's one on shame, one on betrayal, one on anxiety, one on financial fear, those sorts of things. So there might be something in there that one of your audience viewers would need. So do have a look at that.
I did the Atlantean one that you recommended when you did your one over Christmas. I hopped straight on your page and had a rummage around on there and done that one. It was really good. So everyone hop over there. There's something for everyone. It's like opening a bag of licorice all sorts.
Yeah.
Hop on there. There's something for everyone.
Thanks, Leanne. Thanks, Paul.
Absolute pleasure. Please, we can't thank you enough for coming on and demonstrating. And we're going to be back here this time next week.
Wonderful.
We've got some more great guests coming on. We've got David Sy next week. We have Deborah Lockley, I believe, the following week. And then we have Kai, I'm going to get shot if I don't pronounce this properly, Mug, possibly Mug. German gentleman. There's a physical medium. There's lots of stuff on his Facebook page. So guys, check him out as well. Check out the other guys that we mentioned. They're all out there. Get your questions ready. Anyway, we'll see you this time next week. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks, Maia. Thanks, Leanne. And we'll see you next week. Bye. Bye.
Bye.